Right.
It's like we don't even teach that way. So why are we judging this way?
Right.
So it was a test for myself, and then I have students. Um, I would close the camera and say, "Okay, I want you to tell me what type of, you know, if I'm actually using Cole here, right?
Right.
So then I would, you're using Cole. Excellent,
Yeah.
good, right? So,
That's awesome. I like
but yeah, because and then sometimes the students would just always be dependent on the teacher approval. Like if you're
Mhm.
doing scale and then you're all right. So
That's cool. And it actually kind of gives students ownership. By the way, we're rolling because this is gold.
oh,
Um,
okay, good.
but it gives students ownership. If you turn the camera off
Mhm.
and you're going purely from sound, then they have to solve the problem.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
they have to. That's really interesting. I think I'm going to use that. But since we're rolling, let's
Well,
back it up a little
but
bit.
if you're like our glorious, our wonderful, glorious, magnificent, because I know she's going to be on your podcast soon,
Yeah.
Bettina, our teacher, Bettina,
Shout out to
and
Melly.
and and you started doing something wrong, and then you stop and you look at her, and she's, hmm,
Yeah.
that's not a good.
No, and she's nodding.
Excellent, excellent, excellent job. No.
Yeah, that's it was very
Ooh,
fright inducing back in the
interesting.
day, man.
Yeah.
So here we are. So welcome to Sounding Point Podcast. This is our third illustrious guest on the show. I'd like to welcome Jaymes Kirksey, and he is a compatriot of mine from San Francisco Conservatory of Music. He was a studio mate of mine in Bettina Musamelli's studio, who we were just talking about. And Jaymes is a rare soul who plays at a, in many ways, but plays at a professional level on both violin and piano. So he went to SFCM. We were in Bettina's studio together as violinists, and he, after graduating, actually worked as an accompanist at San Francisco Conservatory for several years. And he also is a conductor and active conducting professionally all around the Bay Area. So thank you for joining me, Jaymes.
But yeah, thank you for the intro. And I was just wondering, I was thinking, what year did you graduate?
2016.
Okay.
It,
So you spent 2 years or 3 years with Bettina.
yeah,
That's right, 3 years.
years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably my last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, yeah. I always, I think we do this every time too. I should write down the dates. 2016.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
graduated 2014, right?
I,
Or 13?
um,
Because I might have been coming
I
in
think
when you were going out.
I think 2013 I
13.
graduated
Okay, so
because
I was taking
yeah,
lessons with Bettina, but I hadn't officially switched to her studio yet.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
because I was studying with Axel Strauss, and he was just leaving that year. Uh,
Right, Axel, yeah.
yeah.
Well, just whenever Deflator Mouse was.
I think Deflator Mouse was our. I feel like that's when I first got to know you.
Right, I think so.
I think I remember coming to school, and I said something like, "I'll see you at rehearsal," and you're like, "That was at 11 or something," and I was like, and you're like, "Dude, you should have seen your face. Relax. It's at 2. Relax."
Yeah, that's it would be at those odd hours. Yeah, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
One of my shining moments at the conservatory was with New Music Ensemble under the direction of Nicole Paymont, and I was still so brand new. I guess from a week of partying, um, I showed up on a Friday at 12 o'clock. I thought the concert was Friday at 12 o'clock. and I showed up running in the recital in the concert hall with a tuxedo, and there was nobody there. And then I opened the door exiting the concert hall, and I run into Nicole. She's, oh, hi, James. Hi. Oh, you look nice. Thank you. I have a concert.
With
Oh.
you.
No, I made up some local group and some location. It was actually like a week later on a Saturday. I'm like,
Wow, man.
jeez.
Hey.
I showed up in a tuxedo. It was like hot outside.
Man.
Like, why? Those are good times.
I have to say, I definitely knew some people who reversed the order of those events, where they showed up too late. So, so I think you came away with the win there. Surprising as that might seem. So we ended up collaborating a lot together. We played several recitals together and covered some great repertoire. We did Strauss Sonata, Debussy, Schumann, all sorts of things.
That's right.
Did Franck.
Franck, yes, I was about to mention Franck. Many Tchaikovskys. Yes,
Tchaikovsky concerto.
I think we did Debussy.
Yes, Debussy. Mm-hmm.
Some Manuel de Falla.
Right.
De Falla.
We did Who by Zephyr. That was that one we did. That was the last one we did. Remember that showpiece that we had to do like 7
like God, that was horrible. Some pieces you just shouldn't perform.
Yeah.
They're not. There's a reason why I don't perform Bach often. Or Mozart, he said something.
That's right. Hyphus did not perform. Well, he said that about Mozart, right?
Mozart, yeah.
Because he didn't perform much of it. I think he did the Hafner. He did the Kreisler arrangement of the Hafner Rondo.
Right. Yeah.
Not too much other than.
But not the concertos. In fact, I've never heard.
I think there is like a live recording of him playing. Yeah, I mean, we should also give the audience some back. This is going to be a mess, but it's okay.
One of those live performances.
Yeah.
The USAO.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it was like so Jaymes and I are both very for the audience. Jaymes and I are big fans of Jascha Heifetz, and in general, one of the things we connected on early was sort of the golden age of violin playing, and really enjoying sort of those older recordings. So I think there was a recording of Heifetz playing. I think there's actually a recording of him on 4 and 5. I heard one time. And it's like at the Hollywood Bowl on the radio, or one of those ones, you know?
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Josh Heifetz. I'm just imagining these war-torn soldiers. It's like, who's playing Heifetz? Oh, nice. What? Mozart 4. Oh.
Yeah.
My arm's blown off. I don't listen to this. Whose cadenza is this? One of those invested soldiers.
Yeah. What is it? That guy Franco?
Yeah.
He's the guy who does the Mozart 3 cadenza. That's the only thing anyone's ever heard of.
Yeah, that's ever. Mr. Franco, is this the I was about to say Joseph Gingle, but Joseph Joachim.
Yeah, Joachim.
I don't know if he has one or not.
He does. He does. He has everything.
Scotty. Well, crap. Heifetz actually has cadenzas.
Yeah.
So it just might have been his.
It might have been. I mean, I don't think it was a standard part of his repertoire, but
right.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did his own cadenza for it. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we got to know each other back in music school, and did a lot of performances together. We actually performed at Bozzo Corricelli's house. That was the last time we got to see him. So Rest in peace, Bozo.
Yeah,
Glad you got to meet him too.
that was a great performance, dude, and it was a great venue, great, uh, everything kind of just. I often think about that performance, and a lot of times with performances, it's not just the music or the collaboration or the ovation or anything, but it's also the atmosphere
Yeah.
plays a big role in it. And I think just because he built that property, right?
Yep.
And you know, the stage, just the how it went to the outside, and you know, the people and the weather, it just played a good addition to what we were doing.
Yeah. I did a podcast, my second episode, talking about Bozo. So that not to recap that, but Bozo was a former teacher of mine, and he was not only a fantastic pianist and music educator, but he kind of was a very well. He's a sculptor. He's works with his hands. He loves
Right? Yeah.
craft and stuff. So early on, back in the I think in the 70s, he basically in Morro Bay, he designed his own house and built it. He'd never done it before, never done it since. But architects still like come from around to just look at it and observe it, because he just had this incredible instinctive
Mm.
way of design. And he made this concert hall in the middle of his house. It's basically doubled as his teaching studio, which opens out into
Oh yeah.
beautiful outdoor um, garden area where you can put a bunch of seating, and all sorts of performances take place there all the time. And so yeah, that was the last place, or I mean that was one of the finest recitals we got to
Hmm.
do, playing Barber Concerto. Barber
Ah,
Concerto.
that's right, Barber. Yeah, I was. Yeah, for some reason I thought Schumann was on there.
Yeah, I think that was later that year. We did,
Right.
but yeah,
But
so that was a great performance. I think it'd be interesting because not many people I've met, so really not really any other people I've met, can play violin and piano at a professional level. So, and there's a lot that must have. I don't know. I think it's a perfect opportunity to talk kind of about your mentors and how you kind of what your upbringing was musically. So, how did you get started playing both instruments?
well, you know, it all started in um, 1868. No, well, it did. If you think about it, um, we were emancipated. That's how. Uh,
Whew.
Take that, government.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, no, well, so my mom was the biggest inspiration for me. She played the piano. She was a pianist, and she often, you know, talked about her, you know, former goals and wanting to not necessarily be a concert pianist, but I'm quite sure she wanted to, you know, have that type of life, or just that, you know, that type of aspiration. Um, and from the earliest age that I can remember, I was just playing piano. Then the violin came a little bit soon after when I was 7. I started piano when I was 3. My mom was my first teacher. Um, and, you know, looking back at it, I think, well, she would tell me, you know, she was born in the 50s, 1950, and in the South. So there wasn't, you could aspire to be anything you want, but I think through the institutional and systematic thought process during that time, you know, it was kind of walled. You know, like, okay, well, I can be a church pianist, or I can be an accompanist at some local college versus somebody on the other side. Like, oh yeah, I could be the next Van Cliburn as soon as he comes back over from Russia. You know, I think that happened in the 50s. Maybe I think it was the 60s, but yeah.
Same difference.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same black and white. 70s, very defined. I could tell the 70s, but 50s and 60s, I'm lost. She started me on piano, and my oldest sister was actually the violinist in the family. She was taking lessons from a refugee from Russia by way of Armenia, and she was she was good. You know, I often kid with her now. I'm like, she was she was fairly decent. You know, and she did the right thing, was to quit the violin. No. uh, but she was another big part. But I think the biggest inspiration for violin was Itzhak Perlman, and that was the recording. It was Itzhak Perlman Encores, and he's wearing a red turtleneck.
I know the
Um,
album. I know
yeah,
the album.
with the glasses, and those are old school Itzhak, and it was just seeing that as a kid on the bed, seeing her on the dressers, you know, seeing the CD cover cracked, holding up one part of the table, um, opening the CD and opening the case, and where's the CD? Did we throw it away with the boombox we just threw away, or wedged in between a Motown CD? So
Yeah,
that was my
I sometimes think back with like some nostalgia, like man, I remember when CDs were awesome. But you know what?
oh, they
Actually,
were a nuisance.
we uh
Dude,
we don't remember how annoying they could.
because I remember getting that CD scratched, dude. It was scratched, and there was a period in history where Radio Shack, Circuit City, all of the defunct electronic stores would sell these CD cleaning kits. Spray it, put it in here, let it dry, and spin it out. And
Spin
you
it
would
out.
see this weird waxy film. And would it play? It would play a couple of times, and then it'd be back to scratch. So
Wow.
that CD went through hell. But just his selections on that CD was a big driving force. It was, you know, from Chrysler to Rachmaninoff to Wieniawski, and that was kind of like my first CD that I can listen to privately by myself without any worries, without anybody, you know, saying turn that radio off. Um, and that was a goal of mine. I told myself I'm gonna play every piece on this CD, 14 pieces. There's one that I still.
Which one?
uh, oh, dude, it's the it's I forgot really the name of it. It's the Paganini Sonata Number 12 in E minor. Niccolo
Oh, that's
Paganini.
the it's the
Yeah, that one.
yeah.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
not the pianist, so
Right. But
so
that's the exact part where I said, you know what? I think this is good. I think this is a good stopping point.
yeah,
Now let me move on.
that's right.
But yeah, man, I did even some of this in my well, only did the Tartini in my graduate recital. Those are some wonderful times.
I
But
remember that. I remember the
though
res-
that was my inspiration. My mom quickly kind of sent me to another local teacher. Um, she was a pianist at one of the churches we attended, um, and she was a nice teacher. I think looking back, she made sure that I was able to continue the love I had on it. And in fact, it was the first time I had ever seen somebody with two pianos in their house, one in the living room, the other one in the garage turned studio.
Mhm.
And I was, wow, oh my goodness, whoa. And then by way of my sister's teacher, violin teacher, who became my violin teacher, he spoke of his aunt, who also immigrated uh, to the U.S. During the late '80s, Nelly Asaturian, and that's where it started. They lived maybe less than a quarter of a mile from each other. So Wednesdays and Fridays, I would go to Nelly, then walk down the street, down the block to Corinne's house, and yeah, and then
Hmm.
on Friday, start the violin lesson, go back to her house to
So you
finish
had
it
two
up.
lessons on each a week.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Um, and my mom was a strict believer in whatever it is you want to do, make sure you do it to the fullest. Like, no, don't just play around. Even like I tell students now, they say, "Oh yeah, I play soccer." I said, well, "How many years you been playing soccer?" For 8 years. How many years have you been playing violin? 8 months. "Oh, okay, cool. So let's continue and stuff. But I never try to push a violin student to be a violinist. I push them to have fun and to understand that there's multiple arenas you can be at within whatever you want to do. Because if you're a soccer player, Google the top soccer players of the day, maybe of yesterday, the golden era of soccer.
If there is that.
Study how they do it, and this will let you know if you're really in love with it, or if you're really salivating over it, you can't sleep, you know, that type of love, and then go all in. I mean, really go all in. Go to the local matches. Go to the nationals, the World Cup or whatnot. Try your best to, at least. I imagine those tickets are expensive, um, but especially nowadays with YouTube. And you and I both remember a time before YouTube,
Oh,
and that was a time. YouTube was the Metropolitan Library. Ugh, it was the worst place ever.
yeah. YouTube was that was the Wild West days. You would get some great concerts on there. I remember seeing some. What did I see? I think I was excited because you could see this concert of Boris Berezovsky, the pianist, and
Hmm.
who I only knew about because he collaborated with Vadim Repin, the violinist.
Oh yeah.
I really liked. And there was just this random Boris Berezovsky concert on YouTube. I was so excited. I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
get to see this. But
That's
you couldn't see. That was
right.
me. But you couldn't see Heifetz. You couldn't see like the great performance.
Right, yeah, this is
It was very
way before the the I guess private upload,
yeah.
um, you know, user upload, that's what I mean, of YouTube. Um,
So that I wanted to dive into that a little bit because I think there's two things that I think that are really interesting. One is that I think we had a similar experience. I had a certain rotation of like CDs
mhm.
I would listen to, and I would put it on at night. I would go to sleep listening
Oh,
to it, and I would listen to them every day. And
mm,
Yitzhak Perlman was among those ones. Yasha Heifetz. I just had a certain selection, and there was a compilation album with a lot of these Golden Age violinists. And
oh,
that was called Masters of the Bow. That was
oh,
my first CD, Masters of the Bow, and it was just interesting because from a very early time in my training, I got that bug. I got that drive from the music. It's like I
Hmm.
loved listening to the music so much that I think it was similar to you. Is like I heard Perlman playing Introduction Rondo Capriccioso.
Oh yeah.
I just was like, I need to do that. I need to play that. And I, yeah, and I think that's definitely sets professional level musicians apart from maybe people who take lessons for enrichment is just finding music that gets them that much, you know?
Right. It makes it hooks you. It hooks you, and you know, it's funny you mentioned. Excuse me. It's funny you mentioned the um, rotation of CDs one would listen to, and I definitely have that. I now I didn't. Perlman was the only violinist, and I used to be afraid to say this, but now I'm well, hell, shit. I got 3 degrees, and so I don't care anymore. I got a name. Um, crap, is this for students?
It's for everyone.
Oh well, you well,
Leave it
yeah. Chris Cuomo does it.
in. Yeah, exactly.
That's my dog. I'm gonna get that brother elected.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be, but no, you will serve. No, take that oath now. Okay, but no. Okay, getting back to the point. So Perlman was the only violinist I knew for at least 10 years, and I remember telling that to pretty much all my teachers, including Bettina. And Bettina did the same expression you did. Oh, that's Oklahoma. Well, it was. For some reason, that was the only violinist we could afford, and he would come out of there. He would come to Oklahoma once every 4 years, like I think, or five. He really would, and even on the radio, when I would listen to the local classical station, I guess fate had it to where I would tune in right when a violin piece was playing, and fate would also add to that, like, oh, guess who's playing? Perlman. Like, gee, he must be the great. This is it. This is it. There's nobody else. This is the only violinist, and
You have to have
so
one. That's a good one to have.
right, yeah, yeah. But I mean, Joe, he was the only. Well, I didn't know anybody else existed.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of the other ones, not even his closest friend, who Pinky. Who is this guy? Who's this guy coming into my life right now? And I was scared. But with those CDs, I also had something else other than classical. I had um, a CD I would listen to at night, and this was kind of years later into my training. So maybe when I was 10 or 11, but it was a CD that I found at a what the place in Oklahoma was called Music Warehouse, very generic, and it cost maybe like $1.25, like the third time on clearance, because nobody wanted it.
There's a
But
new
I,
there's a new sticker on the CD for each new time it's on clearance.
the clearance sticker just gets lower and lower. It really was. um, they drafted this whole cutout of this guy, like, to promote it. But but I really got this CD. It's called Keys to Imagination by Yanni, and I got it simply because of the art on the cover. I was like, whoa, man, this is wow, this is like, I had no idea what I was in store for. and I turned it on, and then I was like, oh my goodness. And I would listen to this. My mom would, she was a fan of Yanni, more a fan because of his mustache, and thought he was, you know, 90s gorgeous, long flowing Greek black hair. Um, and so my mom would tell me, you know what, listen to the recording and do an experiment for me. Uh, I want you to listen to it with these earphones and listen to it at night while you're staring up in the sky. So I would do that, and it was so, you know, it was new age contemporary music. So a lot of these, you know, things started to pop into my head, and like, whoa. So I really think that that helped my imagination side of it. And I was telling a student once is that we can't manufacture articles like phrasing and musicianship, and the difference. Why does this person slide and the other person doesn't, or why do we hold this note for such a long time, and at the very end increase the energy of it? There's no, you know, I mean, you're almost asking to see the first atom to really try to understand why one does it, you know. And certain people do it great or good, and I think it's because we have a different context of imagination, where it's not just imaginative, but it's possible. And if it's not possible, damn it, you know, we're gonna make it darn near possible. We're gonna make it as close to, you know, real and tangible as we can get it. And that's that living on the edge of your seat type of moment in music. You know, that's where the sensation of, you know, after that long scale to the that's why we feel that way. Like, oh, he's not done yet. So you haven't even, you know, inhaled a good. He's still going. He's still going until right. And you know, um, and then the other CD, somebody like Michael Jackson or James Brown, and all of those things kind of help. I like the performance aspect of both of those guys, Michael and James Brown, because they were, you know, they were exciting to see. Uh, and by this point, the only performances I had ever gone to was our studio recitals at a local Baptist church on a Saturday at 11 a.m. And stay to the last person, because we'll be giving away a Cece's pizza gift card.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Man, Cece's, dude. That darn damn dessert pizza. God. with a pepperoni that fell from the Hawaiian pizza.
Right. Mostly dessert pizza.
But that was, you know, it was I'm thankful for, and I'm very thankful for the upbringing I had. And you know, I know a lot of my colleagues had different experiences from New York to Boston to, so they had, even around here, they had amounts of exposure. They had multiple orchestras to go to, multiple music performance avenues, and you know, just a wide variety of things to get hooked on, versus a place like Oklahoma, who did, I have to give it to them, they actually did try their best. But you know, if when the people are lost, as a good book says, it's hard. It's very hard to commit. It's very hard to secure that hook. So um,
That's interesting.
those were my introductions to classical music, and the introductions to the world of performance. And I didn't want to do the moonwalk on the violin. I didn't want to do that. But I wanted to try my very best to do a phrase and make a make a musical judgment so that my audience can feel what Michael Jackson's audience might feel, that or something. I'm not imagining my sister crying over some thirds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Octave.
Yeah, exactly. When those tenths come out.
Whew, man, that's when the women lose it, dude.
Yeah, man.
You're getting phone numbers then.
True. Paganini knew, man. Paganini knew.
Yeah, a jerk. I think he was. But yeah. So that was an excellent thing you brought up. The
Yeah.
rotation.
That was no. What you said about
Because who introduced you to other stuff than Perlman? Well, okay, like the older school,
right?
the younger generation.
So I definitely the younger generation,
Yeah.
Mr. Geyser.
Who introduced you to this?
If James and I ever have a weird accent, it's usually because we're quoting Misha Elman,
Oh boy, yeah.
who is in one of our favorite documentaries, The Art of the Violin. Look it
Yeah.
up. But
It's on Amazon. Go ahead.
You said it's not on Amazon, right?
It is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Well, I mean, not Prime. You have to pay
Right.
for it. Although I have a bookmarked website where if you can stand the ads.
One of those. Oh boy.
Mandarin subtitles. Oh, who taught you or did anybody teach you about the old?
Oh yeah.
Or was it a self-discovery?
I definitely credit my dad with helping me. I mean, my dad, it's funny, he has kind of like an obsessive, in a good way. He has like, or I mean, hopefully, in mostly good ways. He has like an ability to obsess and learn everything about a given subject. So when I got into violin and I really started enjoying it, he started sort of looking like researching who are all the best violinists, what's going on. So he bought me a lot of my original CDs. He's how I found out about Jascha Heifetz and Perlman and Maxim Vengerov was a huge favorite of mine growing up. And also, this is funny. I feel like this is a subject we're coming back to several times in this conversation, but the fact of scarcity of information, I think, contributed a lot to my interest. I mean, I grew up in San Luis Obispo again.
Right.
This was sure there was information online. I remember, but you had Napster and you had things like that if you wanted to download music for free and stuff. I didn't know how to do that, and I was also kind of scared of it because you could get viruses on your computer from downloading free music. So I just didn't even try to do that. I would, if I wanted to hear a new piece of music that I learned about in Art of the Violin or something, I would go onto Amazon and listen to the 1 minute free sample. But there were
yeah,
or the 30 second, however long it was. But then I would be, and every once in a while I would ask my parents to get me a CD if I really wanted it. But they weren't, they didn't buy me a ton of CDs, and I was voracious. I wanted to listen to the whole classical repertoire, and I couldn't ask them for 20, 30, 40 CDs. So I ended up finding creative ways of, I would listen to, I would buy, I would find scores. It was way easier to find free sheet music online. I had a music notation software that I would enter. I remember I did this with Paganini Violin Concerto because I didn't have a recording of it yet. I entered in, there was the sheet music at a music store. we bought it, I entered in the music or the first movement, note for note, in the violin part and the piano part into this music notation software just so I could hear it play back and like the horrible MIDI sound. Like I was crazy. But I think a lot of that had to do with almost feeling like I didn't have a ton of access. And I brought
Yeah.
up in my I brought up in my um, one of my other podcasts, or sort of Bozzo Corselli and the San Luis Obispo Youth Symphony, and how valuable of a thing
Mm.
that was for me as a kid, because I
Right.
loved this. I quickly got into this music. I loved it so much, and that was really my only outlet for the longest time. You know, I
Mhm.
don't know what I would have done if I didn't have this organization that was helping me do it, and great teachers and mentors who kind of helped me along the way. So um, yeah, and it's funny looking back. Now you can go on YouTube and look at any great performance, really, you know.
Oh gosh, you can look at the first premiere of something down to the last performance of a guy's career.
Yeah, the access is so easy now, and
Yeah.
yet, and I mean, I want to have mercy on my students too. If just like you said earlier, you don't want to force anyone. You can't force anyone to want to become a professional musician. It's not,
Hmm.
um, you know, if they have that fire and that drive in them, they'll do it.
Yeah.
But it's so funny to me. It's fascinating to me when I have students, and sometimes I've asked students in the past, none of my current students, of course, but some past students I've asked. So, do you listen to any music? And they're like, or like, what music do you listen to? And they say, I don't really listen to music. And I'm like, you're playing the violin. You're learning how to play a musical instrument, and yet you're not listening to music. It's like kind of backwards, you know.
Right.
And the access is so easy now. I mean, it's a great opportunity. Maybe
Hmm.
it's a little easier to take for granted in some ways.
It is. I think so. And but I was gonna ask it. Were we kind of forced? The timing of all this is very unique because we come from um, a background, but also an era where, well, I guess I might be talking about myself. Yeah, I guess I was forced, but I knew a lot of now colleagues, but um, people who were a part of, with my studio, with the studio I was with, and others. We weren't forced, but we were, I guess, managed by with a stern stick, in a
Right.
way. Like if you, if one of our teachers, said, "Okay, I want you to listen to, Stern's recording of this and this, and tell me exactly what he's doing." And if you come back next week, the only thing you would do is have time to ring the doorbell before you go back into your mom's car. That it was it. There was a certain energy behind those lessons. Nowadays, and I've been guilty of this a couple of times where, oh, you didn't listen to it. Oh, well, that's okay. Come on in. And it's like, what am I doing? Am I that desperate for this hour payment that I'm about to get? And so now I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'll see you next week. And then click.
Yeah.
It's like now, because now more than ever, our time is valuable, right? And but it also sends a message. It's not a hobby. This isn't this. I guess in some avenues it can be a hobby for those. But if you have students and they're getting better and better, they're still young, so they really don't know the direction they want to go with it. It's highly advised and should be should be well advised to steer them into a good direction,
Yeah.
into a maybe let me start to consider this now. Let me start to invest a little bit more time in this now. And that's one thing I think that can definitely help. I know this is the statement I'm about to make is for a different conversation, maybe, but I think that will definitely help the arts survive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just taking it as a hobby or an elective, and that's a brand new word I've come to realize. A lot of people are saying classical music. Oh yeah, electives, and hell, this ain't no elective. This is as important as learning about an acute right triangle. You know, it's important. It's highly important because without art, there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So try your best to. You know why they say that? You know why they say that? To keep costs down.
Yeah.
So they won't hire people like you or me. Some, got our degrees up to here, got all of the training we could ever ask for, done things and have wealth of experience. You cost too much. So, we're just going to call it this so we won't attract you.
Mm-hmm.
Once you put somebody that's highly trained in your school for once, for a year, 10 months, that's it. See what happens. Oh, your choir sounds like this now. Your jazz A band sounds like this. Wow, your marching band sounds like this. Huh. Hmm. Yeah, because I get these students to come with their bow hold like this, and they tell me that they've been playing violin for 4 years. And I would say, what school? Oh, this school. And I said, who's your teacher? Actually, don't tell me because they don't matter. They don't matter. And my bosses would call, James, you can't say that. I'm like, why? They don't matter. If you feel like a grown man or a grown woman teaching a young child to hold their violin bow like this, you shouldn't matter. And then it's our jobs to fix it, which time goes along. This shouldn't be the standard.
No.
And you mean to tell me you're getting a job? You're getting a 401k? You're getting benefits? And some of us can only rely on private students whose houses we go to, by the way, because
Right.
we don't have a teaching certificate. But
Yeah.
that's another, again,
Right.
that's
Yeah. You know what? So I mean, it's interesting. I've definitely had very similar issues recently, and or kind of dealing with differences in experience and teachers' quality of string teaching issues. And it's interesting because, especially for, I mean, I definitely want to give public school teachers their fair shake because a lot of them are music educators who don't
Mhm.
have training. And
Yeah,
rather,
yeah,
and it is exactly what you said. It's funding,
it
it's
is.
funding that they don't have the funds to hire a dedicated string teacher. They're going to hire someone who can teach band and all these different things, and they're not equipped to give a large classroom proper instruction. And rather than hire someone who is qualified to do that, since it's arts, it doesn't matter that much. So we're just going to give it to someone who knows a bit about music. And a lot of these teachers will be the first people to admit, hey, this is not my expertise. We could really use
Mm,
some help here. So no, I think that is a huge missed opportunity in our
yeah,
education system regarding regarding music programs in schools.
yeah,
So interesting
yeah.
to see that.
Very.
But what you said earlier about being forced in a way, I thought that was interesting. I mean, I think on one hand, for both of us, I mean, speaking for myself, I definitely had a lot of internal motivation. I really
Mhm.
liked, I would have wanted to play the music anyway because I was that motivated. But for me, it was really my teacher in high school, Nina Bodnar, who she was a she's a brilliant violinist, and very serious about lessons. So again, I mean, it was the same thing with me. If I came into lessons unprepared, I would have it ready for me. She would and she would not be verbally abusive, but she would be extremely
Uh,
blunt. She would she would be extremely blunt, and she would just tell me very honestly, like, if you want to be a violinist, you cannot put in this kind of effort. Like, she's like, you it's not she was just very brutally honest.
right.
And it was really hard for me to take as a kid. And I think as a teacher, I don't want to there's a lot of students who they're not their goals is in life probably are not oriented towards becoming a professional musician. So I don't want to have that attitude with them, just
Yeah.
because I would like them to have a good experience with it, and they'll still get something out of it even if they don't become professionals. But there is
Right.
something, maybe that our harsh old school mentality of teaching is on its way out a little more in today.
Mhm.
But there is a certain aspect of the seriousness and the care with which you prepare your music and you come to lessons, and the level of high quality, the that high standard that you hold yourself to, that is, in
Yeah.
a way, it's inspiring. It's like when you study with a teacher who holds you to a really high standard, then you start to become aware of what you're capable of,
Right. Yeah.
whereas
I definitely agree, and I want to before I lose it, you said something that really struck me. It is because of, well, two things. It is because of our training that we're, you know it's cultivation and it's molding, and I think I feel that passionate about it. I'm not saying that it's more passionate this person or not, but uh, in terms of like the public school situation, my teachers were former Soviets,
right.
and they had those two teachers had a very loud view when it came to music in schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially something like piano or violin or string instruments and stuff. They said it's a waste of time. The best is privately.
Right.
Now, looking at it, I don't know if they were just trying to fund their pockets. Anything. Hey, I got 20 more. Good, good. Keep it going. Keep it going. No. Um, but I think what they meant was the investment of time, a little bit more detailed time. One person trying to manage 30 kids, in March in Midtown Oklahoma City, and it's already 100 degrees, or storm clouds are coming and there's a tornado, and five kids are playing violin and six of them are playing trumpet, and they're in the same room. It's okay. You know what? That's good enough for the show. That and truly, it's no. Well, actually, this is Collet. Oh, and this is Satie. Oh, and then there's no time for that. There's no time for
Yeah,
that type of
it's true.
investment, right? They come from a time and era where those schools existed.
Right.
Those schools, yeah, you learned everything from language to all this stuff, and then you learned everything about Vivaldi that one week at that
Yeah.
school, and everybody's bow was the same, and so it was a huge difference. But she carried that tradition in her. I'm talking about, I guess, my piano teacher now.
Mhm.
She carried that tradition in her private teaching, and it started to kind of get into my, no, I guess, into my airwaves, where a student would show up unprepared, and so Nelly would like have the door locked and say, "Oh, don't talk to her. Just walk around her. She doesn't deserve to be talked to because she's blah blah blah," and she would be crying or something. And my mom, being as strong as she was, had to finally say, "Listen, Nelly, you're in America. And in fact, you're in one of the late states. people don't people don't really see your point. You can't just do this to kids. Have them sweltering outside, no wind. It's 1,000 degrees. They're crying because they didn't play your Czerny etude the way you wanted it." Well, then they should quit. Whatever. Okay. I'll be back in an hour to pick up Jaymes. I'm out of it.
Yeah.
Pontius Pilate there.
I watched
But yeah. But that was the culture that I was a part of in the 90s, I think. And I think Nelly also understood. I think she saw the students' interest and measured them, saying, you're bringing this much effort. Here's what I can offer more. And here's what I'm willing, here's what I'm, here's what I don't, I don't want to give you too much. I only want to give you enough so that then you can kind of tell me if you want to go on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was kind of her approach to it. So the more effort you showed, the more intense the lessons would be.
Mm-hmm.
The more real intense the lessons would be. And I think it definitely played a big part of teaching nowadays, where I do have to kind of watch my tone and watch my how I give to students. Like, what did I actually mean to say that? I've been in front of a youth orchestra, not even the one I'm conducting, but there was a guest thing, and I was working with a second violinist, and it's always a second. But we were doing something. I said, "Oh, no." And it was a whole summer thing, so do it again, do it again, do it again. Like, if you continue to play like that, you should quit and play clarinet. My percussionist cracked up because he understood. That's why he was a timpanist. but it was not. I have a lot of clarinet friends, so sorry if you're watching it. And my mom was a former clarinetist. I have an
Nothing against
uncle
clarinet
who's hell, I played clarinet in college. Got a B, and my reed soaked in water was able to grow another form of algae.
Oh,
A new form. There's ancient aliens in that water. It was soylent green.
Some
Soylent
X-Files.
reed.
Some real X-Files stuff here.
Some spores, dude. I tell you. I was like, nobody told me how long you're supposed to keep it in there.
Man, that's how
But
I quit saxophone. To be honest, the reeds freaked me out. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. Put the reed in this thing after you play." And it's like, you know how wet that thing is? That's disgusting. Oh, it's fine. Just leave it in there. It's like, I'm done.
was it a yellow pill bottle filled with water?
Oh God,
That was mine. I just,
man.
but that type of phrasing was I understood it back then because as a private student, as a kid, I didn't want to be a clarinetist. I didn't want to be something else. So Nelly would say that to me, or my violin teacher would say that to him. Oh well, James, you keep playing like that. You should do this. now I don't want to say that, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so going back to it, yeah, we have learned from our uh, I guess private lesson past, and I think in college that's where we kind of cultivate our teaching experience, our teaching future, because um, some of the best lessons, I'm not tooting my own horn, but some of the best lessons I've ever given, I've had people like Bettina in mind, people like Wade, people like my undergrad professors, Robert McDuffie and you know, Peter Wan. I don't know, keep naming, but I've had them in my head while I'm teaching long ago, not Mendelssohn. you know, yeah. Now, how did you like that? I think you actually found it. I think you found Mary's lamb. I think you found it. Last week it was lost. It was, whew, it was Mary had a dog or something. And then my girlfriend was like, dude, you cannot be 30 something years old and not realize Mary had a little lamb. It's not about a girl named Mary with a fucking lamb. And I'm thinking, oh crap. Oh my God. Lord, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that song was about you.
Really? Wait a second.
Dude, I know you're not kidding me.
No. I am not. I've never thought of that.
Mary had a
And
little lamb.
my 30th birthday is coming next month. Oh my God. Mary had a lamb. Wow.
Oh.
Thank you, James. And thank you, Melissa. Shout out.
That's what I think. I mean, I think there's multiple meanings to that song. Um, like like my uncle once told me that Silent Night was really about because they were in a drought season, so there was no wind. I'm like, okay, well that explains the silent part, but not the.
There's a lot of other context here.
All is calm, all is bright. Yeah, that's the fire danger.
Hey.
No chance of rain in that sky. No sirree. How could it? They saw a star, so you know it's not raining. What?
I can't argue against you,
I really can't.
but
People, people on the. I'm walking. Do you know Jesus? You know what? It's a funny question. I know versions of him by way of my family and Suzuki books and their possible meanings. So yes.
I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for.
Dude, what's that song in book 2 chorus of
Oh, Hunter's Chorus?
no. Judas
Judas Maccabeus?
man, dude, I thought I was a kid thinking Judas,
Like the traitor.
New Testament. Judas had a theme. Wait, this is like shouldn't the Gavotte in G minor be his theme since it's minor? Mom.
That's amazing.
Oh God.
Why are we playing a song about the traitor?
ask Dr. Suzuki. I don't know what.
Yeah.
I think these pieces will. I don't know.
Man,
Make
look
my name
into it.
prosperous.
The secret Suzuki agenda. Look into it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Joe, no, go. I want to
Yeah, I mean, we've
That
been
was a
doing,
good. That was a
we-
good. I know we kind of went off on it, but
yeah, man. I mean, we can. I also don't want to keep you too long, but since we have been talking about kind of our upbringings, and I don't know, that's a really interesting topic. It's like how, because in today's society, it's very uncool, and maybe it should be uncool to be like a dictator in, yeah, either as a conductor or as a teacher, to be
mhm,
like extremely harsh and regimented.
right.
Um,
But that's not manufactured. I don't think. I don't think it's you choose to be
yeah,
hard. I think it comes from the energy that you're trying to establish or replicate. Um, it's a funny thing in conducting. There's particular mannerisms that you have to find somewhere in your soul to do it. You have to, like, for the opening of Beethoven 5, you can't just, and if you can, and if you're in front of Philadelphia, sure, because they've played it longer than the uh you know damn country's been here. So,
pretty much.
but there's a certain energy that goes into it, and there's a certain not smiling energy, and there's a certain body mannerism and certain eye drop, and I so all those things. I often get, especially with high school age, like, oh wow, he sounded mean. And sometimes on the podium, I'm like, listen, I'm going to say this once because I'm only going to be here for 5 weeks. I'm not mean. I don't mean to yell at you. Don't take it personal. This is just being professional. I want you to feel my
Right.
energy. Where some people just have a hard time. I mean, of taking it personal. Oh God, they yelled at me. No, I'm inspiring you to produce X,
Right.
or whatever, or to think this or have this in the back of your head while you're playing
I-
this.
In a weird way, it's attached to how, like, when
Hmm.
whatever it is that we experienced as young people listening to music, whether it was listening to Itzhak Perlman or
Hmm.
Horowitz or whoever it was, there was a level of inspiration. There's a level of like sort of, yeah, a level of inspiration and music, participating musically in something higher, right? That
Hmm.
lifts you and makes you want to be a musician, right? That truly galvanizes you into action. There's something related in that level of um, that level of elevation, or whatever you want to call it, that is called for when you're conducting it, when you're teaching, that where it's almost, if you have a certain experience, a deep emotional experience with Mendelssohn Violin Concerto,
Hmm.
someone is playing Mendelssohn and you're there in the capacity as a teacher, but they haven't yet felt it in the way that you have. They haven't
Right.
experienced maybe the emotive force behind it.
Right.
And there's a certain way of expressing that you can't just be like, oh, it's fine, you know.
Yeah.
That where
Exactly.
it's the music isn't casual. The music
Hmm.
isn't um, every day.
Right.
So in a way, the way you teach it or the way you conduct it, it has to have a certain urgency and a certain gravity to it. And I think that is in its right place. Probably a lot of where that old school mentality comes from, where if you show up to play great music, it's like respecting yourself and respecting your colleagues to take it with that level of gravity.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think I want to add to that. Agnus or Adagio to strings, four strings, Barber. You know, it's when we play it now, um, maybe 3/4 of musicians are thinking about Kennedy's funeral, thinking about a funeral that we don't even know about because we weren't there and we weren't born about it, but we know about it. And we know that it was played there. And also, we know that day in history was a very gray day. But in order to bring it to the present time and to the element of now, we have a sense, we know what goes on, we know the sorrow and pain that goes on at a funeral, at a death, at a wake, at a memorial of some sort. So when we play that piece, that first B flat entrance, it is like you said, a sense of gravity where we now together we manufacture this. Okay, how can we really? Even if you're conducting it, you just there's a reason why you don't. It's not wide. It's
Yeah.
more controlled. And why is that? Because we're symbolizing this intimate, this uh, um, what do you call this? Shivering, this comforted. I need to be comforted,
Yeah.
and everybody needs to be comforted.
Consoling.
Consoling. There we go. It's so that's what we're trying to um, emulate. That's what we're trying to kind of bring out. And I I'm a firm believer that it was the reason why we listen to old recordings and the golden age of recordings is because for a lot of the music, they were the first ones to ever put it on a record. And for a lot of them, I think about like just a lineage of well, going back to the first couple minutes of this podcast, Heifetz. His trademark concerto is Tchaikovsky. Who is his teacher? Leopold Auer. Who did Leopold Auer hang out with on a daily basis? Pete.
Who did Pete write it for? And then get rejected by.
Well. But you see, it's that, oh, yeah, hey, Pete, I think that's good. I think that's good. Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. Nice knowing you. Absent. And then a couple of years later, who's this kid on my roster? Jasha. What type of name is that? Oh, I'm going to teach you, hey, you know what's the funny thing about this phrase? So you have a bridged connection. So I'm not saying that it's more accurate than others. I'm definitely not saying that. But in a lot of ways, some of those old recordings were bridged connections. Other recordings were more, they knew what they were doing. That's why they experimented.
Right.
It was, like singing, like Caruso. There's Caruso, and then something different. That all that whiny type of. And then there's when it comes to conductor, there's conducting. There's a sense of we're not going to hold on to anything too long. Well, what was going on in society, what was going on, as things weren't too cheeky back then. They couldn't be too cheeky, but I think it does all come back to just the energy and what we it, if we have the energy, it will explain the why. The why do we do this? And if you don't, it's just going to be another piece. It's just going to be another. If you have energy, and what's right energy? There's multiple ways of doing it. I remember when you and I would do Strauss. Jesus. There were times, hours like late, like right before Corday would. Hey, you guys need to
Shout out
go.
to Corday.
um, there were times where you and I just did not see eye to eye. I was like, Joe, man, you're going too fast on this. Well, this okay. Well, I'm like, no, wait for it. And then you would ask me why, and then I was like, okay, why? And then it was that's little did we know we were making the music just more evolved because we had a sense of energy,
Yeah.
and it wasn't one person wasn't right or wrong. It was just the creation of energy into it.
That's interesting because
I mean, I was right, but I
that
have the hardest part.
you definitely had the hardest part. Whether you were right, yeah. Strauss Sonata is murder for the pianist. I mean, it's pretty murderous for both, but pretty.
Yeah, it really is. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
but I think that sheds light a little bit on what we're talking about with, like, how how do we think about that seriousness? Let's not call it harshness. Let's call it
Hmm.
seriousness of our upbringing. We have these highly developed ideas about how it should go, right?
Hmm.
Because we had teachers, and you and I can point to our lineage in just the same way you're talking about Heifetz. Um, we can point to either of our teachers' lineage, and through Bettina too, how
Hmm.
she had this direct experience through Galamian and through Dorothy DeLay, um, back to the great masters, and back to the people who did have relationships with these composers in the first place. Zavin Malikian, whose
Oh,
teacher hung out
right.
with Debussy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how short those threads are in some ways,
Mhm.
like that connect us directly to the composers, and where that sense of love and that sense of care and seriousness that goes into the music is part of the main thing that it's our job to pass on, aside from the technical part, which is really important. I think I want to think about that more when I teach, because I think it can be easy to um, lay back and kind of just focus on the technical. It's like concrete. It's like, oh, just here's your bow grip. Oh, how about your intonation? Check it with the open strings, whatever. There's all this sort of advice that's easy to give, but then
Right.
where is that in? Are you passing on not just the advice, but also that sense, that emotional understanding of where the music is coming from? I think
Yeah.
it's key.
Yeah. I had a kid yesterday. He was doing this little A2. I was like, hey, play everything again, a little bit faster, triple P. And I said, I just want to see how you're going to practice it. And so I'm like, okay. So what did I do? I did this number. Like, this kid is great. And then I'm like, okay, I'll break it down to you once. I said, you're doing this. Do you hear yourself going softer? Yeah. I said, okay, that's check one. Do you hear a note that's sticking out? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, good. And I said, do all the notes repeat themselves, like going up and then coming back down? And uh, oh, yeah. And so like after 12 little things, I'm just kind of picking out. I have him do it again, just by knowing it, just by hearing the things, not fixing it, just hearing it.
Yeah, yeah,
Now the phrase,
nice.
it's like, okay, let's talk. We'll do something else. And then before the end of the lesson, I had him do it again. Lost. everything was gone. I'm like, I see, but that's the key.
He
That's
got
the
it.
to
He got it for that moment. It's there.
he
So
got it for right, and so it's now your turn to have it in your ear to ask yourself, is this what I'm aiming for? Is this what I'm doing? Or this is bad, so let me take it out, or let me dissect this, let me analyze this. And a part of that has to just do with age.
yeah.
This kid is very advanced, but very young, and those are two bridges. You want to cross at a nice, delicate time, because they'll perform the Waldstein, and it'll be sloppy, and you don't want to make something like that kiddish. You want to have some type of maturity about it. So, like you said, it's training the student, not training the student, inspiring the student to have that sense of why, that sense of what do I need to do while Joe is away for 6 days. What can I do to elevate my practice a little bit more?
And just that example that you used with your student, you helped him to observe what he was already hearing. It's like a lot of teaching is like,
Oh, you did something bad, so it's
right, or like if he's playing, but you're not. It's like you're hearing, but you're not listening.
Mhm.
Right? It's like what we're doing as teachers is helping the student uncover their own listening ability, because
Right,
it's something they're already physically doing, but it's just
right,
like it's like if they're playing da 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 da,
right.
just
Yeah.
like accenting a note totally
Uh-huh.
randomly, and they're totally just not aware of it. It's just because
Right.
they haven't made that next connection.
They think it's even. They
Yeah,
they really think it's even. On the spectrum, it's like, this is the first note, but they don't realize that the big little knuckle and just the rate that you're pressing it down, that's it.
yeah,
And but it's all of that stuff combined, because you don't want to just tell the student, hey, it's this, and then it'll be something different. So you do sometimes have to go through all these little steps, and
mhm,
where are you looking at and stuff. So yeah, I think you know you mentioned the pandemic. That's one of the things that I think gained for myself is the opportunity to have not just patience with students, but the opportunity to actually analyze and investigate my own teaching practices,
mhm,
offering up more ways, different ways, just foreign ways to fix a problem.
mhm.
Because we get to a certain point. I have several students in the past, and now they're doing uh, the Alamande Partita number 2.
Mhm.
And after a while, you teach it the same way. Listen to
Yeah,
the same recordings, double note, da da. What is it? Okay, it's a dance and blah. And it's like, why am I teaching this? I don't even think about it this way when I play it.
right.
So why am I following the mold? Oh, middle of the bow, bum 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 bum. Why? Have something new to it. So
Yeah,
I think it's given me not the pandemic itself, just the use of Zoom, these
right.
mobile lessons like we have now, where I actually start to read articles, or read, listen to master classes online a little bit differently, or start to actually write down on my notepad, okay, if my student does this, choose one of these 10 options for him or her to do, and see
Oh,
what happens.
interesting.
And I'm not just playing with their soul, like, well, if you fail, you fail. No. But it's like I know that one of these are going to work, and one of these might impact the other one better, and so on and so on. So why not try it? We're in an unconventional uh, time right now. Our playing, our teaching shouldn't still be conventional.
Mm.
I mean, there's some points where yes, you do have to kind of go against the mold a little bit. You can't teach like I can't teach like all of my teachers taught. I can't, and I can't teach like their teachers taught.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would want to, but I won't get the same results because those students aren't the same.
Yeah.
I was talking to my mom, well, every night, but particularly last night, and I've been saying she's, retiring this year, since 2013. So I'll say it again. She's retiring from teaching this year. I don't think she'll retire. But she's wondering, she's like, I have no idea what this state, Oklahoma, is going to do when it comes to opening up the schools. Because she said, hell, I'm not about to go in there trapped with 25 kids breathing on me and have me dead. Secondly, I'm not about to stare at this computer screen for 7 hours out of the day. I'm like, well, mom, but you still want to teach. Well, yeah, I do. I said, so it's going to be one of those options, but I did say this. I said, be optimistic because there might be a third option that we don't even know about.
Hmm.
And she was like trying to think like, what could it be? But I said,
Yeah.
Mom, we don't. This is a brand new thing that we're all going through. Brand new.
Yeah.
If my grandpa were alive, there was some type of like flu outbreak, some parts of back then, but it probably wasn't. I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to say it wasn't as worse as this or not. But
Sure.
you would have to be 90 and up to. Oh yeah, I'm used to it. And we're not used to it.
Nope.
Not this society wearing masks, staying 6 feet apart, in the checkout line, and only 5 people in to pick up your food, or no mask, no service. I remember in Oklahoma and during the summers, it used to be no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Mm-hmm.
These idiots are walking, sweating. Yeah, you need 25 or pump 6. Now it's give me 24. Give me 25 or pump 6. That's how
Or
I am.
people walking around with their masks like this, with their noses out.
Dude, I fight. That's why I had to buy another pair of glasses. I fight with my mask because it
Oh
would
man,
somehow get
glasses.
tangled. And I'm like, can I get it? Oh. You know what? I don't even want gas anymore. Just forget it. I'm just like I'm fed up with this. I'm not going anywhere. I don't want gas. Screw it. I'll leave my car here.
My glasses have never fallen off my face so many times in one. As
Are
when I,
they fogged up?
oh my
Did
gosh,
you get the fogging?
yes.
It's like the worst. Because I will be in Walmart. Excuse me. Can you can you show me where the eggs are? Thank you.
Yeah.
Like God. But anyway, getting back to the point, we're in an unconventional time. This could be our thing that could garner more interest into the arts. Should we still be old fashioned with it? Could we be new to it? What's there to lose?
Yeah.
I've used this share screen button so many times and had my IMSLP score
Oh, nice.
on here and like have a pin. Okay, nope, look, I'm circling this note. You still missed it. Oh, it's wild. Or I'm now submitting, or in the middle of the lesson, we'll watch a YouTube clip, or we'll do something interactive.
Yeah.
I made it's now all over YouTube. Not me, but I'm definitely late to it, but I made this like 4-part series. They're like 5 minutes clips to my students. Uh, Hi, are you still struggling with your bow sound? Try Collet. And then the video, and then the camera zoomed to you. Collet. It's
These
a
are on
bow
YouTube
technique.
right now.
They're not on YouTube. They
Oh,
are private
ah.
Google Drive because I look like a Midwesterner doing a car commercial. My eyes are Collet. It helps you. Damn it. I always start with a pencil. Does your pinky look like this? Look at my thumb. First, I would just retrace my steps all the time. Actually, the first thing you should do is to make sure your bowl hold is correct.
Actually, that's the second thing to do. The first thing to do.
Do you have a bow?
Yeah.
If not, use this, a pencil. Now, I know I've been in the car with my mom or even on BART doing like this. I even brush my teeth.
I do that. I still do that.
Me too, man. It's like, dude, if we have a bow holding competition, I think we would win. But anyway, I mean, those were just, it's just, I guess for me personally, I'm discovering newer ways to teach, to manage my students, to overcome boredom, not just on my part, but on their part, because I know they get bored.
Yeah.
They get bored, and I'm brutally honest with them. And I always, if you remember my quote, I always say classical music is an inch and a half away of being extinct. Because you probably don't remember my quote, okay? But because it's boring. It's boring because we don't do anything with it. What do? We do the same old stuff.
Yeah.
We do the same stuff. And it's like, all right, you guys keep doing your little NEA march crap and the donation, gosh, I mean, anyway, that's for another day, but it's just, we could be doing so much more. And now we have the opportunity.
Amen.
Students have the opportunity now.
Yeah.
We could do.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, because we think about these old classic guys
Mm-hmm.
who we love, Yasha Heifetz, all these guys. In a way, it's like that. I mean, you look back at that, it's no nonsense. You sit down, you play a recital, great playing. There's nothing boring about that in a way because
Right.
it's an artifact of history from where it was. It was honest to what it
Exactly.
was.
Yeah.
But if we sit down and we're like, okay, 2020 now, geez, we're in 2020. Okay, time for a music recital. Go out. It looks the same. You play the same. There has to be something different. We have to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And look back then, as you mentioned, the artifact of history, look back then, how many genres, different genres did we have going on? Not that many.
Yeah.
We didn't have this person over here doing this stuff and this group over here, this genre over here. It was a couple of things. Now we have so many genres. I mean, there's like spoken word, furniture, wood, music that's
Favorite.
garnering popularity.
Yeah.
Surely we can do Beethoven to impact the masses. But what type of masses do we want to impact? And that's for another day.
Indeed, it is.
Yeah, what type of people do you want to listen to Beethoven? You don't want everybody to listen to Beethoven. That's too much power. No, that's really is too much power. Yeah.
That's a good it's a good cliffhanger.
It is. It is.
Let's stay tuned for the next episode. But man, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great.
It was fun, and Joe, I'm very sorry that the time is what it is.
Man, thanks for talking this long. I know we went. This is a nice little marathon here. Thank you for being available.
I hope this works. I have a feeling that you're gonna call and email. So I finished editing, and Jaymes, so our conversation is, I'm actually gonna save it for a brand new interactive thing.
Yeah,
It's like,
we're
okay,
gonna
it was gonna fail.
we're gonna pin this one for now. We're gonna put a pin in it, and we're gonna revisit it.
And they never do.
Yeah, no.
They never do. I watched Chris Cuomo. Yeah, hey, my friend. You know what? Thank you so much for coming on. And hey, you're always welcome here. We're gonna get you back. 7 months later, you haven't gotten him back. This guy's living in New Zealand now. You haven't gotten him back.
Guys, never come back. But the thought was nice.
Yeah, it's always nice.
No, for real. We'll have to do a round two, man. This is awesome. Thank you for making
Yeah,
it available.
I appreciate it. We should. Well, yeah. Let me know. But it was fun. It was fun. In fact, you gave me. I've been writing some notes, and you gave me a lot of insights and things to linger on.
Likewise, man.
Thinking about teaching in the past and stuff like that. So
awesome, man.
Yeah.
And got to meet up. Got to play again after the pandemic's over. It's been too long, man.
I know. I've my house is sealed. I'm not going to I'm too old to go to the hospital. I'm listening. If you're watching this, listen to the news. Listen to your. You want to practice. You want to play well, right?
Yeah.
Listen to your teacher. You want to get healthier. Listen to the doctors.
There we go.
Listen to the doctors. If you stay at home.
Thank you for your PSA.
Don't worry about. I just want to have fun. You gotta have fun in that casket, you know. Shouldn't have said that, but
No, you should have said it.
Joe, always a pleasure. And you know, up next, Dr. Fauci is.
Yeah. Exactly, man.
Man, I think we chose the wrong work. I think we really could have.
Hey, it's never too late. We can always make a switch, dude.
It's too late. It's too late. I'm not learning anything else. I'm definitely not going back to school.
Who am I kidding?
Yeah. All right, Joe.
Done. All right.
See you later, man. Be well. You know, stay safe, stay strong, and yeah.
Thanks. You too.
Be in touch. All right.
See you soon.
All right.